Well, good morning, everybody. Here we are on February 23rd, and I think spring is sticking with us. I'm telling you, I'm looking at the long-range forecasts, and we're up around 5s and 6s and 8s, and for the next 2 weeks, not a negative number. Still cold at night, but you know what? That's the time of the year. But it's supposed to be about -5 this time of the year too, during the high. So it's early spring. That's okay because we had a real cold start to winter, so we're not going to complain about it. We have left Leviticus behind, and we have started on Numbers today. Numbers chapter 1 and 2. And this is where we get into a lot of detail. There's a lot of organization. But look at the numbers that they showed us today. 603,000 fighting men over the age of 20. 603,000. Okay, so let's add wives and children to that. So we're looking at anywhere between, somewhere between 3 million to maybe 6 million, maybe upwards to 6 million people in the desert. But let's pick a conservative number. Let's say 4 million. 4 million people. 4 million people. It's almost the size of Montreal. Can you imagine the city of Montreal trying to live and organize and live in tents in a desert? It just boggles the mind. But this is what God was doing, moving them. That's a lot of people that moved from Egypt into the land that He had promised, in the land of the Canaanites. But the thing was that as you see them organized, and we've pointed this out, or I pointed this out before, I've heard others preach on it. They organized as military. It was a military setup, military structure, and they needed to because almost every nation in the world was going to be their enemy, still is today almost. But the way that they set up the camp is the tent of meeting, the place of worship, the place of sacrifice, was the center. And then all the troops, all the nation, all the clans were stationed around that place. Now, normally, in such campaigns, when the army goes out to fight, the king is placed in the center. Especially when they sleep, the king is placed in the center, and the troops camp around the king, so no enemy can get into the king. So in this case, God is the king. Yahweh is the king. That place of worship, that tabernacle, that tent of meeting, represented his presence. The ark representing his presence was there. And they camped around his presence. The people camped around, Israel camped around the presence. The presence of Yahweh defined them as a people. God was with them. And we know even later when they had the promised land, there was a time that they were fighting the Philistines, and the ark was brought in to encourage, and nobody had known that God had removed his blessing from Israel at that time, and the Philistines were fearful because Israel had just brought their God into the camp. Well, it wasn't God. If it was God, they would have all been crispy critters. But it was a thing that represented his presence. It was there to encourage the troops. Where did we lose this? I mean, one of the greatest gifts we've been given, other than salvation, is God's presence. We have God's presence. We constantly, He abides in us. We are one with Him. He is. We have become one, and it's just amazing. And we have a sense of that manifest presence when we, the children or the worshipers, get together. When we're together, where 2 or 3 are gathered, there's a manifestation of that presence. That's what Jesus said. So how did we start getting we started camping around our church buildings, our denominations. We started camping around leaders. We started camping around sermons and structures and programs and good deeds and all these sort of things. And this stuff is just fruit. It's just tools. It's just things that come out of the relationship we have, out of the real thing that we have, which is the presence of God. That's just it's just amazing. It's amazing how far we've shifted and we don't see it. I marvel every day. I marvel every day at the presence of God. I marvel every day that He chose. He chose to abide in me, invited me to abide in Him, that we would be one. And I can't do anything without Him. I can't do anything without Him. He's not far off on some cloud looking down, writing in a book of judgment about me. He is closer to me than my skin on my bones. And He's here to make sure I make it to the end. He's here to encourage me, to correct me, to help me, to bring me along, to anyway. Listen, be encouraged by this. Be encouraged by it. No matter how much of a mess up you think you are, He chose you. He loves you. He abides in you. Just discover Him. Discover more of Him. Draw into Him. Camp around Him. We as a church have chosen to do that. We want to camp around the presence of our God. That's what we celebrate. That's what we worship. We worship Him. We celebrate Him. We are so thankful for Him. We come together to be changed, to be infused, to be encouraged, to be empowered, to do the work that He's given us to do. So be blessed in this day. Seek Him out, and you will discover the joy of His presence. God bless.